It wasn't scary. I mean, I was never scared. I was just pretty much astonished at some of the things I saw.
I started crying because I was so, I just felt so uncomfortable.
It was like, okay, go in and let's see what happens. If somebody looks like they want to take my head off, it's like, I'm out of here.
There are a number of things that could have happened to the 16-year-old kid in that place in 1966.
1966 was just after the assassination of the president, and the country was just getting over its shock and grief. The civil rights movement in the South was taking a violent turn. Some adults who thought they knew where people should live and who had the right to speak up when they saw injustice tossed a bomb into a church one Sunday morning and killed 4 little girls whose only crime was getting to church early. 1966 was just before 1967, just before cities went up in flames. That's when I saw National Guard troops with guns rolling through my neighborhoods. It was just before the Kerner Commission report concluded, our nation is moving towards 2 societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. And it was before the history of African Americans was considered a big part of the history of the United States.
1966 presents a very clear moment where the seeds of resistance are being sown in a number of ways.
It was a very exciting time. I mean, there was a civil rights movement that was happening. Things were changing. People were dressing differently. The change was in the air, and it felt like we were part of something that was good and necessary.
I'm glad for the opportunities that it gave us in my classroom to talk about these things, because it opened doors that were not necessarily that easy to open.
The great American myth that you can put yourself up by your own bootstraps, that there aren't any obstacles to getting ahead, like race, class, gender. I mean, it's all myth, but it remains the centerpiece of American ideology, that anybody who wants to get ahead can get ahead. And it's nonsense.
The problems associated with race and racial inequality were still very present and seemingly immovable. And so our cities erupt in riots and urban rebellions that highlight the long-standing injustices that remain. There are reasons for people to be pissed off because they have the economic power to live where they would like to live and move about how they like to move about, and there are very clear restrictions present in our residential landscape and our educational landscape. Because we've seen the benefits of years of civil rights activism. We'd seen Freedom Summer, we'd seen the March on Washington, we'd seen all the various ways that protest communities had mobilized. And then we're right on the precipice, we're right at that moment where that radical element is emerging and starting to sort of take the lead around what we would consider movements for equality. And so maybe 66 is that pivotal moment where you can have a racial exchange that has a meaningful impact.
This story is about a high school student exchange between Rufus King High School in Milwaukee and Kaukauna High School up in the Fox River Valley. And a social studies teacher at Kaukauna High School wanted his kids to have a broader view of the world. So to do that, he was going to have them perform a play. The play he chose was In White America, the history of African Americans from slavery to civil rights. This all happened in 1966. After the initial exchange, people sort of forgot about it, but I didn't forget about it. I had this story in the back of my mind since high school, which was more than 50 years ago. And then when I found the King's Page newspaper from 1966, and I looked at the date, and I saw the pictures of these kids from Kaukauna. I said, this is a story, and I'm going to tell it.